Hi, my name is Anthony. I am the founder and CEO of South Central Innovation. It is a community that brings entrepreneurs, learners, and educators together on how to build their dreams. I'm here accompanied by one of our Passioneers. His name is Michael, and he's going to be talking us through his experience, what he's working on right now, and what does it mean to become a Passioneer. So, Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here.
I have a couple questions for you, and I'd love to learn more and show the audience a lot more of what you've been working on.
Absolutely.
So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you're currently working towards?
I am Michael Naffier, and I guess a little bit about me. I am an artist and a creator and a founder. I have been dancing pretty much my whole life. That was like for a long time my kind of main medium that I practiced in. I went to school for it. I went to University of Southern California for dance, and while I was there, I also discovered music, and now that has become a really big part of my life and one of my also main kind of artistic mediums that I am exploring and working in. And I think I'm really about my work is to serve and empower artists by giving them tools, by giving them language, by giving them resources to better understand themselves and their ideas and how to better communicate those things and work with each other and hopefully create work that is resonant, that is potent, and that means something to them and other people. And what I'm currently working towards is a foundation and an organization that gives artists this kind of platform.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
I can feel the energy coming out of you right now. If you can describe the season of your life in one word, what is that word?
I think if I were to describe this season in one word, it would be alignment. I spent the greater part of the last year or so back home in Colorado, where I'm originally from, around a lot of really incredible people working in these creative disciplines and mediums, and I felt like I didn't quite know what my place was in all of that. And again, it was really incredible work, but just not necessarily work that was really aligned with what I feel my true purpose to be with all of this. And as a result, I felt like I wasn't able to really show up as fully as I wanted to and speak on my vision the way that I wanted to. And now I am in LA again, and I am surrounded by people who really get it and really understand and support me and see me for the person that I want to be, see the vision for what I believe it can be. And that feels really, really good to know that there are people receiving what I'm saying and then transmitting it back to me, which is just a good affirmation of like, okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. So all that to say, I am feeling very aligned right now.
That is super awesome to hear. As a micro tidbit, actually, before our next question, I do want to talk a little bit about the context in which I met you. We met through college, but recently there was this release party that one of our friends was hosting, and that's when we met up again, and you told me a little bit about your working on something about Passioneers and South Central Innovation. Then we soon reconnected a month later again, talking about your passion again, and talking about what does it mean to empower yourself, and what does it mean to bring your vision forward. And so at that context, that's actually when I actually brought on Michael full time to become part of the Passioneers project. Now we're going through it, and he's actually going to be doing a showcase in March. And you guys are going to see a lot more what his vision has to say, a lot more than. We'll go into the next question. What's something people don't see about your journey?
I think that especially right now, it's really easy to see the kind of the outcomes of what people are doing via social media, via all of these other avenues. And a lot of times it's like you don't really get to see that process. And it's been a long process for me in just figuring out what it is that I have to offer for my community in building these tools and systems that I am right now. Uh, it's a lot of research. It's a lot of diving into books and just highlighting lots of things, dog-earing lots of pages, just making lots of notes on the work that other people have done in these various disciplines and mediums to make sure that the work that I'm doing is grounded in work that has come before me and that is tried and true and that is coming from these people who are very respected in these various mediums. Just making sure that I'm doing my due diligence, and it's a lot of work, but it's a really gratifying kind of work because I feel like every time I learn more about this kind of stuff, I'm now walking around with this new knowledge that it's almost like I'm walking around with new eyes that I can see the world through, which is really incredible.
I love the analogy about the new eyes. That's actually something we talk about very often in the Passioneers program, is coming in with a fresh set of eyes and seeing the world in that way. That's super awesome. Super awesome. You're internalizing that and really bringing that into the world. That's so awesome to hear. What are you building, dreaming about, or exploring right now?
I feel like that can go in a few different ways where it's like, I remember one of the first meetings we had, when I was explaining this whole vision to you, and you asked a similar question of like, what are you dreaming about, or like, what does success look like? It was along those lines. And I remember I was talking about some more material things of like, the material side of what I'm building right now is I'm really putting together my team. I'm finding my people who are going to be there to support me and help me build this vision kind of from the ground up. And then there's kind of the other side of that, which is like the dream, which is when I picture myself in this place where this kind of vision has come to fruition, what does that feel like? Like, what is that dream like? And when I think about that, I'm really dreaming about a world where art is valued in a different kind of way, and artists have so many more ways to express themselves, not just amongst the various arts communities, but to the world at large, and be able to really stand on their work in a different kind of way and be able to connect with other people and themselves and artists in just these deeper kind of ways. Like I see a world where that's possible, and that's really exciting to me.
So well put. So that actually wraps up our first set of questions, introducing you, going into some questions about who you are. Now we're actually going into what you're working on. Yeah. So taking a deep dive into the project. So tell us about Atlas. What is Atlas? If you were to describe it, what is the project about? What is the idea about? And what are you building?
Absolutely. I think that in order to understand Atlas, I need to like give a little bit of backstory, a little bit of context for this. The kind of high level overview mission of what Atlas is that it's an apparatus designed to empower and serve artists by giving them tools and language and systems to foster compassionate curiosity, to foster connection and collaboration, and to give them platforms and community to really find other artists who are thinking in similar ways, and then give them the kind of tools to come together and make this kind of work. But the kind of backstory about where this came from was I, like I said in the intro, I have been dancing for most of my life. And I went to school for dance. And it was pretty early on in my journey at USC Kaufman that I kind of ran into like this sticky place of not knowing what I wanted to do with dance and kind of losing the spark a little bit, not knowing if I even wanted to continue dancing. And it came at this like weird time in my life. It was right around COVID, and so we all, we were dancing at home. It was a very strange time, and I just kind of needed a break from it. And that's when I picked up music and I started learning guitar. I started learning a few songs, then eventually recording my own things and just kind of like gradually building up that process. But I kept these things very separate. Like I had this weird, complicated relationship with dance, and music was kind of like this new love of like, oh, like this thing is so new and exciting, and I don't want to taint it with my feelings towards dance. And so I kept these things very separate. And as I continued on this journey, starting to get more and more into music, I started making some little pieces to dance to and these kind of things. And this eventually led me to this place of curiosity where I was like, I'm starting to get more into this musical practice and realizing that the things that I'm trying to achieve in this form, even though I may not have the technical expertise or the skill set to do that now, I do know how to do those things in dance. I have this really deep embodied knowledge of like how to evoke these feelings in this form. And so I started really drawing on that knowledge to inform my musical abilities, which felt really empowering to know that like I'm not a technically trained musician by any means. I'm like entirely self-taught in like YouTube University. And to be able to draw from like my own knowledge and experience to inform this new thing, it felt really empowering. And so this kind of led me to this place of like, I want to find new ways to combine these mediums. The typical format is like, I'm a dancer and I'm dancing to a pre-recorded piece of music, or I'm dancing to something that's already been set. And I just wanted to find new ways to put these things together. And so my senior year, I started working on this project, which became the first iteration of mapping. This part of like one of the biggest initiatives of Atlas. And mapping at that stage was really just a way for me to teach and communicate these musical concepts to dancers in ways that I felt would serve them, in ways that were relevant to their practice, because dancers have this really incredible sense of musicality that can offer so much depth and offer so much of this stuff, but it is limited. And I didn't realize how limited it was until suddenly I found myself in this whole new like deep dive of music, realizing, oh my goodness, there's so much more here that I just like, because I couldn't hear it, I didn't even know it was there. I couldn't use it. And I thought to myself, what would it look like if dancers could like use this information? If there was a way to present this in a way where they could genuinely take it and integrate it into their dance with just this whole new depth of knowledge. And so I was doing that and developing this kind of curriculum around that. And as I started developing it, it began to take on the form of these lenses. These lenses being just different ways to break down a piece of work, whether it be music, whether it be dance, to some of its core components, and use those lenses to translate these ideas across mediums. these lenses are built in these more universal ideas, for example, like motion or space or shape. These things are things that are not necessarily constrained to one artistic medium. They can be found in all of these places. And so using the lens of motion, I can figure out, oh, I really like the way that motion is being used in this dance piece. There's something about this type of motion that evokes this feeling. It has this essence, is what we call it in mapping. If I can take that idea and map it onto music, maybe I can evoke a similar, if not the same emotion with music. And I've used kind of this knowledge from this other medium in order to do that. And so that is where that is right now. And what I began to find was this was all very focused in music and dance. What I began to find as I started using this system more and started teaching it to people was that these ideas are things that can be translated to a lot of different mediums. A painter can understand how motion is used in a work. A filmmaker, a sculptor, a chef, right? Like, it was just something I started to realize was really widely applicable. And so I started dreaming up of ways of like, how can I share this information? How can I teach it? And what does that look like? And so Atlas then becomes this apparatus that this all lives in, where I can have the educational opportunities. I can also have opportunities for people to showcase this kind of work, to work in deep residency with other artists and collaborate in these mediums, using mapping as this kind of interface to communicate these ideas and express these things. That's like the, that is the kind of large vision of what I'm currently working on.
Wow.
A lot of backstory.
So amazing. I love it. I always love hearing about mapping, and just hearing about these, how that same pattern could be recognized across different mediums. That's so powerful. So
Absolutely.
awesome. So if you were to kind of describe, like, you know, you mentioned this a little bit of, you know, the reason why it exists, but if you were to kind of like identify the problem that you're kind of like heading towards or you're solving a little bit, what is that problem that Atlas or mapping solves for?
I think that there are kind of two routes to look at that from. One is more of an internal problem or like a personal thing that I'm trying to solve for artists, and then another is more of this interpersonal avenue. I think this is best described with like kind of a story. Like, we can, let's use Anthony as an example, as kind of like a case study here. Anthony's a dancer and a choreographer. And he really loves, he has all of these artists that he looks up to, that he takes inspiration from, but he doesn't really know how to take all of those parts and make it cohesive and make it his own, how to put his own voice in there. He hasn't really discovered that. And so mapping is this way, one, to understand what makes you tick, to be able to take in all of these sources and really kind of surgically get to the crux of like, what is the essence of this? What about this particular choreography, this show, what is it that I'm really latching onto, that I'm resonating with? And what is causing that? Like, what are they doing to evoke that feeling? So with that kind of knowledge, I can then, or rather you, Anthony, the dancer and choreographer, you can then start to take these things and say, okay, maybe I'm going to apply this idea. Maybe I'm going to try this approach in my own work and see if that evokes the same feeling. So on one hand, it is a tool to help artists discover their voices in this time where so often it's hard to find your voice with so many outside sources telling you who you're supposed to be. Continuing on with this analogy, you, Anthony, the dancer and choreographer, you have started to like create something. You're creating this piece and you've gotten the idea out and it's starting to like really take form and take shape. And you get to this place where you're like, okay, it's time to start editing this and revising it, really get it ready to be presented. But there are so many things that need to happen in order to do that. There's spacing and blocking things, there's lighting, there's specific interactions that are happening that you need to get a handle on and all of this stuff, and it feels really overwhelming. And this was something that I found that I came to a crossroads in my creative process. Was I would get to a certain point where it was like, okay, I know how to do this up until here, and then everything would just fall apart because I didn't have a method to get me all the way to the end of the idea through the execution. And so what mapping can also do using these lenses is provide these really specific ways to break down a process and focus on one area at a time. Where it's like, okay, I know a lot of things need to happen right now, but for now, I'm just gonna focus on the lens of space. The only things I'm looking for in this session are things that have to do with space, whether that is the space that the dancers are taking up or the atmosphere of the piece that is being created, right? And I'm only gonna focus on that. All the other stuff, we'll get to it. But for now, I'm just gonna do this. And what that allows is the ability to make really specific and intentional choices, making sure that the essence of whatever that original thing that evoked this feeling of like, oh, this needs to be a dance piece right now. This process allows that essence to remain intact by being specific and being intentional. Are all the choices I'm making in this step of the process leading me back to that feeling? And it just helps break it up into these kind of bite-sized chunks where then eventually you go through all these checks. Then you have this final piece that has remained close to the core and the intention of what you wanted. So kind of solving for this problem of I get to a certain place and now I don't have a process anymore. And these are kind of like these internal things. This then interpersonal path is now you, Anthony, the dancer and choreographer, you are starting to work with more artists. You're now on a music video set. So you're working with musicians, you're working with a film crew and a director. And you've been able to figure out how to get out these ideas in your own medium, but now you're working in these mediums where you don't necessarily have expertise. And where you were really able to clearly bring things out, now you're starting to run into these struggles of, oh, I don't know how to communicate this idea to a director because I feel like I don't know the language that they speak. I don't know the language of film. I don't know the language of music. What mapping provides is this shared language of, I just have to know my own medium well enough to be able to articulate the essence of the idea of what is being expressed. Being able to say, hey, so I made this specific choice of having these two dancers in this proximity, moving in this kind of way, because it evoked this feeling in me. Can you take that idea of that relationship, that proximity, that motion? Can you find a way to translate that into the camera work? Can you find a way to translate that into the music? And then in that way, you are allowing other artists to really use their own voice and their own critical decisions of like, okay, I know what our target is. How can I use my technical expertise to figure out how to do that, knowing that all of us are working towards the same goal. We've all tapped into the same essence in the same emotion. And now we can then take this and say, okay, I know how to attack this from my angle. You got it covered on your side. And now we have this whole project that is reinforced by everyone's individual knowledge and the ability to communicate these broader ideas without having to necessarily like go through all of the grunt work of learning a whole new language.
Wow. Layers, layers, layers. I love the shared language portion. Whenever I actually describe what mapping is, I'm like a shared language amongst artists where anyone could communicate with each other.
Absolutely.
And that's actually been the way of how I've been just like shorthand. Like when I brag about you, I very much brag. I'm like, I'm working with Michael. He's like creating this new language for artists, and everyone's like, what?
Well, and you know, not to like jump too far ahead in this, because I know we have other questions pertaining to the Passioneer specifically, but like a really big thing I see in mapping and what Atlas is doing, which reminds me a lot of what you're doing, is kind of breaking down this illusion of separation. Like really at the end of the day, there are so many similarities and there are so many ideas and feelings out there that we experience that at their core, like they're the same ideas, but because we have these different perspectives and paradigms, it's like I may not be able to see that the thing that I'm feeling is actually the thing that you're feeling, just packaged in this different way. And by being able to have this shared language, we can better understand like, oh, you just say this word this way, but it actually just means this to me, which is like, then now we have common ground and now we can really work and build something together, which is like incredible. That I think that's one of the big things that originally drew us together, was like, oh, like I see this like shared language model. I see this idea of we're in this together, which is really incredible. Just to like shout you out as well.
Oh, thank you. You know, I think there's like a magic to what we're working on, and I'm loving that we're meeting together and actually building on each other's shared language with each other. It's super awesome. I got my next question is, so you're going through this journey right now. You're building your team. You're starting to discover a lot more what Atlas is starting to become. So what has been one of the hardest parts for you so far in this journey?
I think that along the same lines of what I was saying before about just feeling like I wasn't in environments that were totally aligned with what I wanted to be doing. I mean, I'm sure you can understand this also as a visionary. I think the hardest part is that this thing that I have and that I'm building towards, like it doesn't exist yet in the world, but I see it so clearly. And the hardest part is really just communicating that clearly to other people in a way where they can see it too. Because I know that it's there and I can feel it and it's like it's already here for me. And now it's just a matter of like showing other people that, yeah, no, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about all of these things that I'm working towards. And it's really just getting them to see, and really on me of being able to communicate clearly, this is what my vision is. So that way a lot of people can say, oh, that's what it is. I get it. I see it.
The way you describe that is actually, for the people listening, it's actually, we call it like vision casting, right? It's being able to not only identify your vision, but share it, and you're therefore like casting it and allowing people to absorb that vision and take it for themselves, right? Because that's the energy for it, right? That's the energy and power of vision casting. That's
Absolutely.
Super awesome. What's something that surprised you going through this process? Going through your journey? What's something that I was like, oh, I didn't know that about myself, or I didn't discover this aspect that I was in?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that immediately comes to mind is like I'm really ADHD, and it wasn't something I discovered, like, was diagnosed for until college. But I've always been like very adverse to like systems and processes and these things that felt like they were confining, because I just so much of me doesn't know how to work in that and finds it really limiting. But what has really surprised me about this is like essentially like I'm building systems and processes in this way that is like, wait a minute, it feels counterintuitive to like this life experience that I've had before. And what I really learned about that is just a way to reframe what I'm doing of like, I see part of my job is like building a playground. As a kid playing on this playground, like it's not my job to design it, to build it, to implement it, do all these things. It's my job to play on it. As a kid, just like that's my job. Me, now the playground architect, it's my job to design this playground in a way that's like, how are people who play on this thing, how are they going to have the most fun? How are they going to be safe while doing this? How am I designing this in a way that feels good? And that's really, really amazing, and something that has surprised me of just looking at it from that perspective of like, oh, my job is just making structures that feel good to play in and that have good integrity and good structural integrity so that they can be utilized to the best of their ability. I think that has been really surprising in the process, just because I don't think I would have seen myself. I don't think I saw myself in education. I don't think I saw myself doing this kind of manifestation of the vision.
You know, the way how you describe the playground is such a great analogy of, you know, how to play in a space and how to grow in a space, or even how to improve it, right? It's like you're building this apparatus because you're improving on previous knowledge, right? It's this culmination, right? And you're allowing new people to come in and culminate it further, right? Super awesome. I always love hearing these great analogies that you always have. It's so awesome. So now you're in this journey, you're going through the Passioneers process, you're discovering your vision. So what does success look like for the vision that you have right now?
I think also going on this like, what is it, what does it look like in like a internal feeling sense, and then also what are the built manifested structures that indicate success to me. I'll start with the latter. Success for me looks like a generation of artists who have mapping as a tool in their toolbox and are able to use it, really, really utilize it to the best of whatever their vision is in order to get that out. I see this being something that is taught as kind of a standard curriculum in these various disciplines, just because it provides a structure to be a launching point for collaboration, for communication, for all of these kind of things. I see a generation of artists who are really sure of themselves, and even if they are not sure of themselves, they're able to be really curious and have this, what we call it, compassionate curiosity for the world of, oh, I don't have the answers right now, but I'm really excited to go look for them. And I'm really willing to find them in a lot of these places. I think that success to me looks like a generation of artists, and by extension, people who are able to do that. And I want to be able to run these structures, these institutes, to be able to teach this stuff really, really deeply and intensely, and to be able to have different programs and ways to showcase this kind of work, to be able to support artists who are working in these amalgamation of fields and disciplines and mediums to be able to showcase that work and say, hey, there's a lot of really incredible stuff going on right now. Like, look at it.
Oh my gosh, the amount of motivation to build the next, especially like the next generation of artists, right? It's like, that's you right now, you know, and you're building this new space for future. It's like, I think the aspect of being a visionary is building for the future versions of you, right?
Absolutely.
And seeing that there's so much growth in that, and seeing there's so much opportunity in other people to expand on your vision now, right? I love it.
It's a link in the chain.
It is. Now we're going to start shifting a little bit into your experience in South Central Innovation and your experience being a Passioneer.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question for you is, before joining the Passioneers program, how did you think about your future?
I think that we talk about this, and you specifically, like, you talk about this as your role of like your role as this leader and as this coach in this sense is not to give people a vision. Like, you're not doing that. The people are already coming with the vision, in which case, I'm already coming with all of this stuff, and you're just helping to give that a little bit of structure and give that a little bit of a way forward. And I think before joining this program, I had a lot of these ideas swirling around, and I just had a lot of these. They were very disparate. They were like, oh, I want to do this, and I have this thing, and this vague sense of these all connect somehow, and I'm just not sure how. And what joining this program has really done for me is giving me the connection points and giving me a structure, built a playground for me to then explore these things, knowing that it's like, oh yeah, I know how they all fit into the whole, and that feels really good to know that I'm like, yeah, like all of these things, they come together in this way, and that's really what this program has given me.
One of the conversation points we had was, and we voiced this a lot, is I just thought I was crazy. I was so crazy because I had all these thoughts and things, and I resonate. I told him, like, that's just what the indicator of a visionary, right? And we all think we're crazy a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that was something we very quickly, when I was talking with you, you were very much like, I just feel crazy right now. And I was like, you're perfect for this program. If you feel crazy, and if you feel like, things should be expanded on or greater, or you have this vision for the future, which way you're having, right? It reminded me of my purpose here as a whole, building the Passioneers program. So super awesome. So what has changed in the way that you see yourself now?
I think I'm a lot more confident. I can really see a way forward that is not just this abstract idea of this is my dream, this is my vision, this is my passion. Like, for the first time, I really feel like, oh, I have these very tangible steps that I can take towards that. And that has made me feel way more confident. Like, there's something to be said about, like, oh my God, that's me taking the step. I'm doing that. Me who for so long has been like, am I crazy for thinking that I can do this? Is this even like remotely a possibility that is in my wheelhouse at all? To be able to then start taking those things, it's like, it is an incredible sense of affirmation and confidence that I'm like, oh yeah, like, I can do this. And this is what it looks like, one step at a time.
Super awesome. The visualization of, oh my gosh, I'm doing it, is such a great and empowering realization. I actually had this reflection with you literally about a week or two ago, and I literally, at the end of our session, one of our coaching sessions, I literally was saying, it does seem like you're kind of moving a little slow, but as you start to move forward, you'll soon realize that, oh my gosh, I am doing it. Which literally for me at that moment was with you coaching me at that moment. I was like, I am literally doing the thing that I've been writing about and thinking about for such a long time, and now I'm doing it right now.
Oh.
And so I resonate with that a lot, because I'm like, that's, you know, what South Central Innovation is all about. You know, that's what I'm doing. And it's I just love it, that realization aspect. But that's the real turning point. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
Super awesome. So we've been coaching for a lot. I've had a couple sessions with you since about January. So what has been the most impactful session or conversation that you've had?
Honestly, not to sound cliche, but like they've all been like I feel like I leave every week like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing the thing, like I'm following my dream. It really is like, it's hard to pick one. But I would say, I think one of the earlier conversations we had about building a team, and you had just described some of these initial roles of like these very inner circle foundational roles of the team. Like, who are these people to support you, and what do they look like? What is their role? And I don't think I had like really consciously thought about that before. I had been thinking a little bit more like, if this is the foundation, like I was thinking in teams like a little more out here, and thinking like, oh, like who are the people who are boots on the ground doing the thing? And that conversation really changed my perspective. And it was from that, my homework assignment was to start recruiting some of these people, and started to think about who are the people in my life who would fit in those roles. And from that session, I began recruiting people, and I now have 2 people on my team who are like incredible and like visionaries in their own right, and just people who know me and support me so well. And it's like every time, and one of the things you said in that conversation was, the dream is going to feel, you're going to feel it, like it's going to feel so much more real the second you bring people in and say, hey, I want you to be a part of this. Like, you're going to feel the shift. And sure enough, with both of these conversations I had with these respective teammates, it was like this switch was flipped, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Like, I now have these people who are like in it with me, and every time I meet with them, it's that same feeling of like, oh my God, like how are you people doing this with me right now? Like, this is incredible. So I would say that has been like incredibly impactful in terms of like which sessions have really carried me.
I love that. The team aspect is always extremely important too, and that was actually one of our first sessions too. And it's like,
yeah.
And I remember one of the you mentioned this of something that particularly stuck to you was when you started casting your vision and sharing your vision, people started to reveal who they are to you, because you're being honest and you're being the vision caster, right? Yeah. And as you start to vision cast, people start to support you in different ways. And part of the coaching experience was like setting up what those things would look like, right? So you can catch them, right? Because
exactly,
that's the important part. It's, you may not catch it initially, and a lot of visionaries don't, right? And so that was, having that as our first session was really important at kind of establishing these new eyes, right? Like seeing into the world and bringing your vision forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have known what to look for. And then suddenly with this new set of eyes of like, oh, like this person's role is to support you emotionally. Like this person is like really there for you. Suddenly when looking at it through that lens, I was like, oh my gosh, I know the perfect person. Like, I already go to this person for these kind of things, and they already know about the vision. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And it really was just a matter of like this person's been in my life for like years at this point. Shout out Maya. And yeah, like just having the lens of like, oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for, and you fill that role. So it makes so much sense that this is the next step. So absolutely.
Whew. Shout out the team.
Shout out the team.
Who's the other person in the team?
I've got Maya Davis and Cardin Chung. They are incredibly special to me, and they are forces to be reckoned with. Shout out them.
Super awesome. So how has journaling, so this is a lot of the aspect of learning, journaling, reflecting, and coaching. So how has this mentorship or journaling influenced you or grown you?
I think that part of my journaling practice before this was one of gratitude and intentions. I have been for the past few years like pretty regimented in my gratitude practice of just writing down like what am I grateful for, and also like what are my intentions for today, for the month, and how am I making sure that every day I am working towards those things. And this program and the mentorship that you've given me has given me so much more reason and reinforcement of like, oh yeah, this is why this is so important. Because so much of it is like we can't predict the future. And like really, if you're thinking about it, it's like the future is this thing that we've made up. Like I have this idea of what's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. But what has happened are things in the past. And knowing that we are these very cyclical and habitual creatures, I know that based on the things I've done in the past, I'm probably going to repeat that same behavior in the present and going into the future if it's things that until this point have, well, I mean, not even like if they've served me, like just if they're familiar. And what journaling has really done for me is allowed me this opportunity to actively like write my guide to the future by being present and writing down, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. Now I've got years worth of journals to look back on and say, oh, I see this pattern, this habit, this whatever it is, or I've seen the way that this idea has developed over the years. And it gives me a little bit of a roadmap to say, okay, this seems to be based on the patterns that I'm seeing, the trajectory that I'm on. How can I continue to adjust that or fine tune it or make these different kinds of changes so that way, as I'm very actively building the future, I'm building it in the direction that I want to go. And that practice and mentorship has just given me like, it's a structure to do that in, and a very dedicated way to practice that.
Wow. The way and how you describe journaling too is the way how I describe it as well. It's kind of like it's quite literally documenting your thought process, like, because you can write notes about any subject, any topic, but writing about the things that you're thinking about is such and not much is done in practice. It's such an uncommon practice that it's like a mark of a visionary. It's something that I say is if you write and if you find yourself journaling or writing anything, you're writing the things that are in your head and you're documenting those things. Like that is the mark of a visionary. And so I remember when you showed me some of the notes that in our first session, I was like, yes, yes. He's got it, you know? And so for those listening and for those watching, those are the marks of a visionary. And those are kind of one of the signals of that you have bigger ideas coming through.
I thought one of the things that you had said in one of the sessions about writing that had really stuck with me was this idea that like by writing something down and making it physical, like it's this practice of like pulling from the ether or like this very abstract space into reality, which is like you know, when you're doing it, it's like, oh yeah, like I'm writing my thoughts, but it is a really profound act, I think, to make something that is invisible visible. And I really liked the way that you had explained that in one of our sessions.
I remember I was extremely ecstatic explaining that too, because like I really wanted to make sure that, especially you in our session, I really wanted to make sure and reinforce that, like, what you're working on, you're on the way and you're on the track. So I'm really happy you stuck with that. So now we're going to be going into specifically passioneering, and for those that are watching at home, for those that are listening, passioneering is a term that I'm currently coining right now, trademark pending, figuring that part out. Before I fully go on to explain it, I want to hear from your perspective going into it, what you think it is. So what does passioneering mean to you?
I think to use and build off of this kind of playground analogy, passioneering to me is really just the process of giving this passion, this like really raw energy about an idea, just giving it some guardrails, giving it a space to grow and nurture, and giving it the tools and resources to do that. I think that there are so many ways that passion can manifest and show up in the world, and there are a lot of structures currently that don't support that and don't foster those things that are able to grow. And I think passioneering to me is really about finding like what is that thing first of all, and then how can, in the way that works for you, how can we grow that? How can we turn that into something that has mass, that can be seen in the world around me in this way that doesn't just live in me?
Oh my gosh, that is beautifully said. So how would you define purpose right now?
I think that purpose is like some of the language that we've used in previous conversations is like this feeling of, this isn't something that I just want to do. This is not something, even though I want to do it, obviously, but this is something that is not optional to me. The vision that I have and the future that I see for artists, for the world, is not something that's optional. And largely, I don't think it comes from me either. I just happen to be in a place where I get to see my specific take on this larger idea. I get to see that through to fruition. But that purpose is larger than me, and this is just my 2 cents in it. And it's something that will happen one way or another. And it's just not like, it's just not optional. Like it's the same way of like, oh yeah, like, what does breathing mean to you? It's like, I don't know, I have to do it to live. Like, it's the only way. And when I think about my purpose with all of this, it's like, oh yeah, that it's something that is just not optional. It has to happen.
It's like a calling. It's the
Absolutely.
calling, right? It's the feeling that drives you towards a certain direction.
Absolutely.
I think the way how you described that actually reminded me. I was just speaking with a couple high schoolers about passioneering and about South Central Innovation, and one of the activities I had them do was to close their eyes and think about think about yourself in a couple years from now. And I said, imagine you had a loving family, a loving environment, a space that fulfills you, and you're doing the things that you always wanted to do. And then I was like, open your eyes. And I described them like that feeling that you had, like that little charge or emotions that you felt in your heart, that was a future version of you letting you know, hey, this can exist, this is real. And it's kind of the starting point at which you head that direction, right? It's like kind of like directions almost, you know? And I remember there's something I described with you as kind of like different decisions that you make head you towards different future versions of you. And so the way how you described that is like directly like remind me of that situation with those students. Like, and I will say like those students really loved. A lot of them came up to me afterward and they were like, "Hey, I'd love to be a part of this as well." I'm like, potentially we're gonna get high school Passioneers. That's something I'm currently working on.
So incredible.
But yeah, it speaks volumes, you know, the purpose, the calling, you know.
Absolutely.
So, what is something you would say to someone who is like who's lost or calls himself crazy, right? They may have thought of all these things. They have their journals full of papers. They're like running around. They're telling people their idea, and then people are just like giving them thumbs up or being like, "All right, cool, good for you." Like, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, that hits. Because like I've been that person for many periods in my life. I think you have to find the people and the places where you see yourself. And honestly, sometimes if you can't find those places, you just need to put on a new set of eyes, because I think that those places can be found in a way larger capacity than maybe we sometimes think. But yeah, like the kind of the fundamental point of that is like, find the people and find the spaces, and sometimes that means keep talking about the thing, like keep putting it out there, because someone will find it. I have this philosophy that as humans, like we are all very fundamentally just trying to affirm our place in all of this. And we do that by sending out these signals, sending out these messages, these things, and in hopes that that gets reflected back to us. Because ultimately, it's like we can't ever know for sure if anyone is really out there feeling what we're feeling if we're not receiving these signals back. But the thing is that it's like you will receive signals back, because in some way, shape, or form, it's like you talk about this idea of tuning forks. That like internally, like a tuning fork, when it vibrates at a certain frequency or when it receives a vibration at a certain frequency, it will vibrate and it will resonate. And we all have these different tuning forks in us that are tuned to these certain frequencies, and when someone else is in proximity that is also resonating in the same way, that just has something that connects with us, it allows what's in here to resonate. And I think there are so many opportunities to find those points of resonance, and sometimes it's just about opening your eyes a little bit more to like, maybe I don't see how this thing could resonate, but let me dig a little deeper. Let me look at it from a new angle, and maybe I'll find something that does. And I think that that is a really incredible door. Like having that kind of compassionate curiosity about the world is a way to just open up more of these doors, more of these opportunities, that it's like, oh, maybe maybe I felt lost, but I couldn't see that there were all these doors in front of me to open, or all these people who are really willing to give me a map, to give me a way forward in whatever these things are that I feel lost in.
You know, whenever you mention like a map, I always think back to Atlas.
I mean, it's working.
It's like a compass, you know. I love
exactly.
it. I love it. So, why do you think spaces like South Central Innovation or the Passioneers project, why do you think spaces like that should exist?
Oh, well, I mean, exactly what I just said. Like, it's so important to be able to see yourself in things and see yourself in positions where you can be successful, be heard and understood, and be empowered to keep doing the thing. And a space like South Central Innovation provides that, because it is so focused on like what is my purpose, what is my mission, what am I bringing as a student, and how can I like continue to foster that, and what are the tools and resources that are being provided to me through this program that allow me to do that. Like, it's just so important. I think about how many kids are out there right now with these seeds that are going to like change the world, who just need like some sunlight, who just need a chance to let it show.
You know, the way how I think about it is I reflect a lot about my experience in South Central, and so very much, and I describe this analogy of feeling crazy, because for a lot of time I felt crazy, and I was drawing all these diagrams, and I was like creating all these programs, and I was trying to figure out what is this thing, you know. And it turns out it was South Central Innovation and Passioneers calling me from back in college, even back in high school. There was these feelings and things that I'd slowly been growing on, and so now I'm like seeing those fruits now, and so this growth point is super important.
No,
it's so vital.
It's incredible to see it happen. Like I'm amazed that I'm here right now. Like, oh my gosh,
I'm amazed that you're here. This is really amazing, and this is like a dream come true. You know, this is the dream. You know, this is super awesome.
Let's go.
Okay, so now we're starting to get into a little bit of, you know, what's in store for you a little bit. There is the showcase coming in March, so that is where everyone could come see what Atlas is up to, what mapping is all about, and you're gonna have a whole presentation. You're gonna pretty much share the vision as a whole, right? Really expand on it a lot more. It's gonna be where you're gonna have the floor. And so some questions that I have is, what does the future look like? Yeah. And so how do you see yourself in 5 years?
Myself, Atlas.
Let's say yourself.
Okay. I see myself in 5 years. I'm like thinking about like the timelines and all this stuff. I see myself with a real foot in the door. I see myself in a position where the work is really starting to show for itself and really starting to gain some mass, and has, you know, a real feet to stand on, legs to stand on, I think is the analogy. But I start to see myself in that position, being able to start to seek out some bigger support, and seeing myself surrounded by people who are more steeped in the work and are really starting to also see the vision.
Hell yeah. Now, where do you see Atlas in 5 years?
I see at least the first wave of artists who are steeped in this practice and are taught making work in the world. And I see these events, these community events, these showcases, these residencies, I see that all starting to take solid form. And yeah, just really like in 5 years, I really envision that first wave of people starting to go out and starting to make an impact, and for people to start to really notice, like, oh, hold on, there is this new wave of artists doing things that haven't been done before, combining these things in ways that are really new and exciting. What is this?
I can't wait for my printed copy of what mapping is about. Like
Oh,
a
yeah.
whole hardcover textbook.
Mhm.
So, if you had unlimited support, how might you grow Atlas? How might you support what you're working on right now?
Hmm. I think right now the current place, if I had unlimited support, is really just time, opportunity, and people to start creating with. I think that I've had these various opportunities in the past few years at in certain places and circumstances to test out this kind of stuff and really kind of get the pilot going. But if I had unlimited support, it would really be dedicating time to, okay, like, this is my cohort of people who are here to really, really lab this thing with me and figure out what can it do? What, when we start really applying it to these different kinds of contexts, what does that look like? And that support going into the future is like the ability to build these institutes where people can get this kind of education, to build this platform where this kind of work can be showcased, where artists who are doing this really have their value can really be seen, and they can be given opportunities that match their level of dedication and craft.
I love the artistic notion of craft too, like the bringing in of resources together and opportunity for artists, right? I can't wait for the first live Atlas event or mapping showcase, right, where a whole bunch of students come together and showcase what they built with mapping, right? And I think there's a couple other people. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you mentioned this a little bit. Like even one of your teammates has already been thinking about mapping and using mapping already. Right?
Yeah. I had introduced it like in depth to Maya about a year ago, and we had played around with some stuff in the recruitment meeting. Actually, we were talking, and he's like, yeah, in my own work right now, like I find myself really thinking about this kind of stuff a lot, and it's really a system that I'm using and finding so much value in. And he's like, I can only imagine what it's going to turn into once it becomes this like widely known and used thing. So I'm like, it's really exciting.
It starts with one and it keeps growing.
Woo!
So you mentioned this a little bit of creating the space for artists, breathing the new space for creators everywhere. But if you were to kind of take a sentence or two to describe what is the kind of impact you want to have?
The impact that I want to have with all of this is to show people that art is something that we need. And art is something that comes through us from this kind of source, universe, God, any, like, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, this experience, art is really just the manifestation of that. And in that way, art allows us to really see ourselves and to understand our place. And right now, art is like under attack in a lot of ways, and commodified and reduced in value to something that is consumable, something that is content, something that is just meant to either entertain or placate. And I see art as something that is so much greater than all of that. And hopefully, my impact would be that we have people in the world who can appreciate that and who really understand, like, this is the value of artists in society. This is why we need infrastructure. This is why we need financial support. This is why all of this stuff matters, because art is such a powerful way for us to understand who we are as people, and being able to have a world that sees that and truly understands that, like, that would be the ultimate impact.
I got chills here. So now that you're in this journey now, you're a couple months into it now. If you were to give advice or say something to your younger self, whether that's a year ago, a couple of years ago, what is something you would say to that person?
I would say be really present. Like, the dream is happening right now. When I was in school and going to these classes where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wake up early. I don't want to have to do this today. Like, dragging myself out of bed. Like, I had moments like that too, where I had to remind myself, I was like, hold on, Michael in high school, like, this was the dream. Like, how amazing and like what a privilege it is that me now gets to be here experiencing that. Like, I owe that to my younger self to really, really take this in. And I find myself still in that position of like, be present. Like, don't miss it when it happens, because like, it's happening right now.
Happening right now.
Right this second.
I love it. So that is the extent of the questions we got. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for talking with, the future generation of Passioneers and what we're building here at South Central Innovation. I do have a mini blurb I want to say before we cap it off. So we do have a showcase coming in at the end of March. So we're going to be posting soon in the next half month to come see mapping, to come see Atlas, and to come see what South Central Innovation is all about. Really quickly, I want to say that South Central Innovation is a community that I've been writing about, simply same as you've been writing about, that I've been writing about since the past year, 2 years. And it's been a space that I've been always wanting to build as someone who's a LA South Central native, and to really allow people to expand and build on their dreams, and to come to this word about Passioneers. It's taking your perspective of what your passion is, and in having that as your guiding light. My favorite analogy is, you're in a dark room, and it's your values, your heart, and your passions that guide you and give you the torch to light the way. And as long as you keep feeding it and expanding it, you're going to continue to find your way. And you're going to figure out that you have so many dreams, so many ideas that are going to expand your fire. And that if you don't allow yourself to provide to this fire, you may get lost. Right? And there's a lot of people that get lost. And so when we found each other, I saw that you were like, I sound crazy, I feel crazy, right? And that's usually what it comes down to, is a lot of people think that they're crazy. It's like, no, it's just that you haven't taken the time yet to actually build the thing, or to give yourself the time, right? And when we started having our sessions, that's after every session, literally, it's like burst of energy, right? Because you're starting to feed the flame. And I am looking forward to seeing the final showcase of, we still got some more sessions to go. And so thank you for spending the time to speak here right now. And for anyone who's watching, thank you all for listening and watching. this is the first of many other future podcasts and future showcases of Passioneers like yourself. And we have our event coming up in late March. So stay tuned to then.
Woo! Woo! Let's go.
Thank you, Tino, for helping us out. He's
Thank
behind
you.
the camera.
Thank you, Tino.
All right, that's a wrap.